I keep wondering when people reach out to me and saying, "अरे मेरे को PM बनना है," and मैं पूछता हूँ क्यों बनना है?
What is a good product manager?
Just because somebody is a good PM doesn't necessarily mean they are a good public speaker. Once you come to a certain stage of a career, you take organizational wide problems, but the core principles in the framework remain. The trick over time is how do you keep your failures as less in terms of pinching you and maximize your gains. If this person has never failed, they don't know how to deal with that failure.
Correct.
And it can go chaotic. So it is better to make wrong decisions faster than to not make a decision.
Yeah.
No, look, it's totally okay to have weaknesses. But the point here is you should have the humility and the awareness to acknowledge that weakness and say, look, I will work towards this weakness.
So, first of all, welcome, Pavan. I think super happy to see you here. This is amazing. I think each one of you, they are super excited for this conversation. And typically, what really happens is that they don't believe just what I say. And when leaders like you come in, it just reinforces that thought. So I'm super, super grateful even before we start the conversation. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. I'm flattered and sort of really touched and equally grateful to be part of your session. I know how popular it is, and I'm super excited to actually interact. I don't do this very often, so I'm equally excited and equally nervous.
So what I'll do is the structure of the session, Pawan, for the first 30-35 minutes, you will have to bear with me the questions that I have, right? And then post that, there will be the students, they have some good questions for you, they would typically ask. But again, it's going to be a very fun conversation. But even before I start that, I'll do a very poor job at introducing you. So let me just do that. So I think to start off with, Pavan is a leader. He's a friend who recently, and I don't know if I will be able to do justice to the introduction that I could do for him. But then again, let me just give my shot. That's what a product manager actually does. Tries to make do with circumstances. But yeah. So I think Pavan started his career from MS Ramaiah. I don't know how many of you know, it's a very, very great state college of Karnataka. He did his engineering from there. Then he went to the US, right? Spent some time over there, moved into his first role. He spent like 5 odd years as a consultant in the telecom space, if I'm not wrong. Then post that, he jumped into Nokia. Back then, Nokia was a very big name. Simultaneously, he spent there some time as a senior product manager, specifically in the location services part. And then I think the next move was as an entrepreneur, right? So he knows the journey very well. He spent four years as an entrepreneur, right? Leading a company, building products, and which eventually got sold to Grab. And he spent considerable time in Grab, working on the merchant journeys, simultaneously merchant systems and things like that, right? And in his most recent role, he is the VP of Product Analytics Design at Freight Tiger, right? Which is again cool. And in his most recent role, he's the VP of Product Analytics and Design for Freight Tiger, which is a SaaS logistics startup, which typically allows logistic providers to do efficient business in the ecosystem. So welcome, Pawan. Once again, thank you very much for taking out time. Yes.
No, thank you. And I think you summarized it better than I ever would. So I think you did more than enough justice and perhaps added a bit of masala as well along the way. But no, thank you and happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay. So Pawan, the first conversation is the kind of people typically ask seminal questions at the end. I do ask them in the beginning only. So I think this is the question that everybody wants to hear. What is a good product manager? क्या होता है? मतलब ये जो बात आजकल बहुत मार्केट में होती है कि अच्छा प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर, a good product manager means this, that, interacts with the business, etc. What according to you is a good product manager? And kind of extending that conversation is that what are the core principles of a good operator? Right? How does an operator, by operator, I don't necessarily mean a product manager, but it might be a marketing manager also. It might be somebody else.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. It's almost like a philosophical question, right? I mean, to some extent. And see, I mean, and when I started out, especially after being a consultant and doing some bit of portfolio planning. Then when I moved over, I just happened to be at Nokia, and it just happened to be taking on a role of the PM for sort of maps. And maps was new. Product management was not a defined role at that time, right? And now I think it's become a lot. I guess it's whether it has become clear or not is debatable, but it is definitely become a lot more aspirational, right? Now, when you say what is a good product manager, it's actually, I keep wondering when people reach out to me and saying, "अरे मेरे को PM बनना है," and मैं पूछता हूँ क्यों बनना है? So and they sort of like, their answers and the choice of sort of thought process, and that perhaps is true for anything you choose, whether it is product management or otherwise. And see, there are some core capabilities when you think about like how do you be good at any role, right? There has to be a certain level of aptitude, and there has to be the right attitude, right? And if you have these two things, right, you can perhaps master any role, whether it is product management or anything else. Now, you will see a lot of charts where, say, product management sits in between design, product, analytics, marketing, is the CEO of a product, a business, customer. But ultimately, like you said, right, these are like this attitude and aptitude parts and the curiosity. These are general sort of requirements to be successful. Forget being a professional, right? In life, right? And as you grow a little older, it probably hits you and one understands it a lot more. But these are the principles you carry forward regardless of it's your personal life or your professional life, whether you're a product manager or whether you're not or you're in a different role. Now, what's important is when you speak to somebody, you almost understand or try to put yourself in their shoes and try to understand what they are actually saying. Listen or read between the lines, right? So, a good professional is able to extract that, right? That insight, that we call that empathy, right? So, how do you put yourself in that other person's shoes and know what he or she is trying to look for? And how do you converge your aspirations on what you want to do with the outcomes that they are seeking, right? That is perhaps required. I'll give you a good example, right? Like I was negotiating something for, in a non-product way for somebody like a friend, like a deal to close a house, right? Or rather, it was renting this place, right? And and there was no connect between the two. One guy wanted one thing, the other guy wanted another thing. So what I did was I just spent time with my friend, and I asked him, look, what are the things that you want? Then I spent separately time with that person who has the property, and I said, look, I mean, I want this, right? Now, what is it that you seek by which you can give me this, right? So it's almost the art and skill of negotiation by putting yourself in the shoes of the person you are sort of speaking, being empathetic and compassionate to their needs, and solving a problem in a way that is analytical. So it's sort of you're able to derive logic to it. You're able to say do step one, step two, step three. So that steps are need to be replicated in sort of a like a platform that you code, whether it is the backend systems or like a front end sort of experience in an app. And then you sort of keep looking at, look, is it driving a certain outcome for a specific customer? If not, you keep refining it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the essence of just so happens that the stakeholders here happen to be, the people who build this
Yeah.
or write that code, and the people who bring in, the requirements, and the customer himself. So you constantly refine and take feedback. But the stakeholders tend to be different. These principles apply to any role at any stage of your career. Early stages, you tend to take smaller problems,
Yeah.
and you have a defined scope. As you grow in your career, you take wider problems and perhaps deeper problems. Once you come to a certain stage of a career, you take organizational wide problems, but the core principles in the framework remain. So the foundations of what one learns, and if we get these foundational aspects right, I think one can be successful as a PM, as an engineer who doesn't have any background in engineering, as a business professional who wants to build a startup or an entrepreneur, as anybody, right? So I think that would be my sort of a long drawn response to a simple question that you asked.
The funny part was it wasn't simple, and you did realize it. But yeah, but I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you kind of spoke about. And I think, like in ek sawal, Pavan, matlab, it's just an interesting question that I always used to feel. And people just come to me and they ask me this question, ki, bhaiya, aap bolte ho empathy, right?
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
say negotiation, storytelling. How
yeah,
does one become better at that? Right? Maybe is it not just ingrained in you as a person that people listen to you? Or is it because I am an introvert? I have this kind of background, and these skills
yeah.
just they're good to speak. But how does actually somebody make it actionable? I just wanted to hear your thought on about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, it's see, every individual
Hmm.
is good at certain things and needs to work on certain things. It's as simple as that, right? Now, in your personal life, you may be an introvert, right? But if your sort of like core principles are such,
Hmm.
it almost you're wearing a different hat almost every time you are donning the role of a PM, right? So now these if it's an inherent skill, like all of us have gone through a rigorous educational system in India,
Yeah.
which tries to make us all rounders, right? We go through sort of competitions of extempore debates, public speaking and stuff like that. Now, just because somebody is a good PM doesn't necessarily mean they are a good public speaker, at least initially.
Sure.
And I can honestly share with you, yeah, despite everything that I've been through in my schooling and, being an extrovert myself, I have had a lot of, nervous moments and like choked in front of large audiences, right? So there are, and but it comes with practice, right? It comes with practice. Nothing sort of, beats that, right? So you almost want to keep practicing that. If you want to like do well in an extempore or a debate, you go in front of a mirror, and we've done this, right? We've all done this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just practice, right? And you sort of role play, saying, what if that guy asked this question? What if somebody asked this question? And you try to, and the point here is, how do you get good at storytelling is certain things, if you practice enough, right? You're almost able to anticipate a question. And the biggest problem one finds is, in a discussion or in an interview, right? Is you get stuck. It's not like you don't know the answer. So either you have a framework in which it allows you in a step-by-step way to come up with an answer with somebody, like showcase your sort of talent there, or in a storytelling way, if you've anticipated enough, those key points that you want to talk about, and you start with those, and then you sort of like take the flow. So it's not a natural thing. You could be an extrovert, you could still struggle. You could be an introvert, you could still excel. And the trick here is sort of understanding what are the key points of that you want to talk to your, the audience that you're speaking to,
Yeah.
based on the story you want to narrate, and almost anticipating that, right? Like, I don't know how many of you follow cricket. I mean, I'm sure all of us do, right? Why was John T. Rhodes a good fielder? Was because he anticipated where that guy was going to hit the ball,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? So similarly, why certain people are better at certain things is because their ability to anticipate, and that ability to anticipate just comes a little bit with a little bit of practice. And over time, that practice just becomes intuition.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that you essentially talked about, and I think that is something that I keep telling them. But एक चीज इसमें होती है, मतलब one of the things that you just spoke about, and I think a lot of my friends, they who are good leaders at other places, they also speak about the same thing. There is one thing that I think most kids still face a challenge on, and I'll tell you what is that. In that pursuit to become a good storyteller, it comes with a lot of failures, right? You'll probably go to a place, somebody will judge you, will say कि यार तुम तो पीएम कभी बन ही नहीं सकते, तुम तो सोच ही नहीं सकते, you don't have that ability to think. And generally people are anchored a lot on outcomes. If I do these three things, like a lot of people feel this pain when I essentially graduated, went to IIT. The people who couldn't make it and had put an effort for like 2 years had this the longest bias against the education system of the country, that
Yeah.
he did put so much effort, it never happened. And either then people recede or they essentially have develop a different mindset over there. तो उस टाइम पे अपने आप को बंदा कैसे बोलता है यार कि it is just some feedback, I have to assimilate it, learn from it, and keep continuing, because this trajectory of getting into a good operator role is not something that it's like chaos. You cannot predict it can happen in 1 month. It depends on where you stand, right? And then it
Yeah.
may take you 6 months. It may so happen it may take you like 1 month, right? So it is different for everybody. So how do you essentially keep yourself anchored at that point कि नहीं यार कुछ तो सीख रहा हूँ, there is something valuable that is happening and I'm growing up as a person inside, and whatever external is just feedback.
Yeah, no, look, this is one of the hardest things to train your mind on. And no matter how much one talks about, it is not easy. We are all humans at the end of the day, right? And if we again go by a cricket analogy, I think Sachin Tendulkar or somebody was saying that, I miss a ball, somebody drops a catch, the pitch is doing a lot of things, but what do I focus on? I focused on the next thing, right? So, but as humans, if we fail in an instance, our, initial reaction always tends to be, Arey yaar, I failed. Oh my God, that guy succeeded, or that girl did better than me, and stuff like that. But and I think the advice we've always received as in terms of wisdom was that, look, it's not about you versus them, it's about you versus yourself yesterday,
Yep.
right? And it's not anybody who is able to master this skill is actually sorted, right? And despite everything that I say, I have my moments, right? So see, we are driven by human emotions, but the larger thing is how easily, or how not easily, how we are able to rationalize those emotions and move on. Because over time, look, yeah, and like Steve Jobs, I think in one of his very earlier sort of videos, which became like a super inspirational video sort of shared that you can't, in that graduation
Yeah.
speech,
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
you can't connect the dots looking front. You
Yeah.
can only connect it looking back, right? So, and the fact that you have to trust that someday it'll all make sense. So, you just have to have the conviction that I have to do something. And you can't deter yourself by failure,
Yeah.
right? Everybody fails. I have failed so many times. I fail every day, right? And the trick here, and what I have learned over time, is how do you try to make your failures small in terms how much they pinch you, right? Oh, sorry, I lost
Not an
my
issue. Not an issue. Please take it up. Yeah.
electricity, Bangalore, for a weird reason. All right. Okay, I'll
Uh,
keep mobile video off till the electricity
yeah.
comes
Yeah.
back.
Absolutely. Please do that. Yeah.
So yeah, otherwise I look like a ghost to all of you. But I was trying to say is, how do you keep your trick over time is, how do you keep your failures as less in terms of pinching you, and maximize your like gains, like how potentially you would do like as an investor, or in the public stock market or stuff like that. So it's just about that. I think it's just about having that conviction, the electricity is back,
Awesome.
and sort of not getting flustered by failures. Over time, mastering your own art about how to reduce the impact in terms of how much it pinches you,
Hmm.
and keep moving forward and maximizing the sort of success. What you call success, look, what you call success could be very different what somebody else calls success. And over time, everybody's definition changes from monetary to something else.
Yeah.
So, don't be bound by one definition of it, and keep sort of making progress. And, entrepreneurs, maybe, one sees like the first successful startup, but they don't see that the 20, failed startups that one had, or sort of they pivoted through and sort of got where they got to, right?
Yeah.
So, so we should celebrate failures. And I'll give you another example. I believe, I'm not sure if it's the Israeli army or an Australian army, some squadron in the army or regiment or whatever they call it there, whether it's Australia or Israel, I forget. But one of the key things that they look for when they recruit in that sort of group is that, has this person failed? The funny thing is, they do not recruit the person who has never failed, because the chances and their rationale is, if this person has never failed, they don't know how to deal with that failure,
Correct.
and it can go chaotic.
Yeah.
So don't fear the failure,
Yeah.
embrace it, and keep moving on.
Makes sense. I think one of the things that we keep talking about when we generally do about large systems is that minimizing failure rate is often understood by just sheer discovery without moving nodes initially. Just better understand what situations can come across, and I think you just naturally become better at it. But I think one thing that I have two more questions to ask you, and then I will open up for the kids because I don't want to talk for the longest time here. But yeah, so first, one question is that again, which is a very common question that I ask people: what is good culture? Right? Why is it important? Right? Why should people join places which have high talent density, where people are good, nice people who essentially build good products? And how does it shape a person's trajectory? I think everybody has at some point a good boss, a good mentor, a good friend in life, and I think people learn from them. That's one. And the second question is, which is again very important from the point of the cohort, since these guys will essentially look for product roles in the future, would be, what do you look in a product manager when you hire someone, since you've managed teams of product, not just necessarily of product managers, but also group product managers and senior people, seasoned folks. What do you do that? So I think these are two questions which you can answer one by one. Would be lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, sure. Again, look, these are simple, as they sound simple, but they tend to be fairly complex in their answers. And everybody's definition of culture itself is so different that, like, having a point of view within that of what product culture is sort of even more, I guess, debatable, one could say, right? But look, I think it's more about what is the environment that sort of the team sort of thrives in. A good culture is essentially empowering those to be their best, right? Not worrying about making decisions and choices. Having a framework where allowing them to sort of fail often, but fail small. Having the openness to sort of ask the why, right from the most sort of a newcomer all the way. And that person should be empowered to even ask, like, a senior leader, like, saying, hey, why do we do this? Why is it important? Why not the other way? And funnily enough, where these questions get asked and get introspected well and sort of clarified, often are the places where great products tend to get built. Otherwise, what happens is, the thinking gets stagnant. There is a lot of baggage that sort of comes. Arey yaar, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, performance review nahi hua. All you tend to focus on the wrong things, and then sort of like the product experiences suffer because you're in a status quo, right? So the ability to challenge that status quo and allowing people to do that in a way where it is safe and they feel safe, I think is what a good culture, whether it is product or otherwise, is, right? And the within product, obviously, the more emphasis that you have on like data, whether whenever you bring something with a why, it's always great to have, some look, I did this thing, I did this analysis, I found this insight, I see that we are not doing something this way. May I know why? That's always the better and more substantial way to ask a question versus just like somebody said something and you said, hey, why? So those kind of, uh, just asking a question for the sake of asking a question doesn't foster good culture. Doing your rigorous sort of thought process, having a like a logical way to present your question and backing it with some evidence, even if it is wrong, it's fine, but having a sort of a point of view and then having a constructive debate to foster an outcome which is like a positive for the overall team, the organization. That is good culture, product or otherwise, but product more so.
Very cool. Yeah. I think this is one thing that I also kind of speak about. And since you have heard it from Pavan also, I think whenever you essentially try to have any kind of networking conversation, right? The value is that it's twofold. It's never one-sided, right? You always figure it out that what impression it leaves on the other person, right? How do you have done your discovery, right? Like, for example, if I speak with him, and I'll be very honest, and this shows the kind of person that he is. When he did reach out to me, there was a proper structure to that conversation, that I've seen this, I like the thing that you do, etc. So that essentially gives you a symbol of a very good operator. He does his research right, does it, understands that those things, and those conversations have merit, right? And that is where you find value. I think, Pawan, the second question is still to be pending, and it is the most important question for these kids. What do you look for in a good product manager when you hire people?
Look, whatever I described, right? The curiosity, how enthusiastic one person is. I think, see, the best product managers are what makes a product manager successful, right? I think that's now these are those people who rally around a lot of people who they have zero control over, bring them all together and drive clarity and allow them to sort of function and perhaps little bit sort of track their stuff and how it's come together towards the larger outcome, right? Now, this is not rocket science, right? Even if you don't have an engineering background, you can very well speak a very logical, analytical sort of way. Like when I interview people who I'm looking for platform roles, I almost like ask them, how do two systems converse? It's almost like a conversation. Hey, what's your name? The answer is something. Okay, where do you stay? There is almost like a conversation happening between two systems, and the way you sort of drive that conversation is through APIs, right? Like and there is a structure to those APIs, and there is an expected response, and there are errors and all of that, right? Now, so what I was trying to coming back to the question is the attitude, aptitude, basic analytical skills, curiosity, and the ability to be clear in your thought process. Whether you're right or wrong is irrelevant, actually. So if you look at like how Google interviews, how Facebook interviews, they ask very open-ended questions, right? They are not trying to see, array, if that answer is correct or not. They are trying to assess if how you're going about solving a problem. It's like, I don't know whether it's still done or not. I studied in CBSE a very long time ago, but we used to have like these math questions, right? And every question, it's not a one or a zero, right? We used to be graded, let's say, 5 marks per question, and if the approach was right and the final answer was wrong, we would still get a 4 or 5, right? So the point is, how do you articulate your thoughts in a constructive, analytical way that people understand? And because you are working with different stakeholders, everybody needs to understand in their language. And then you obviously have to work with like, the teams to sell it. So your storytelling becomes important. But even that is purely about articulation of clear value, thoughts, and saying it in a way that this person who is your audience understands it. So what do I look for? I look for curiosity. I look for like clear communication. And by communication, I don't mean language. It doesn't matter if your English is good or not. But what matters more is if you're able to articulate your thoughts well or not,
Yeah.
right? So but you should be able to do that at a very precise level, right? So communication, analytical thinking, right? Like ability to break down large complex problems, mutually exist, MECE sort of frameworks, figure out how do you sort of group certain problems together, like figure out insights from patterns and stuff like that. The great PMs do that, right? Some people what they do, and these tend to be not the ones I look for. They'll say this is somebody else's job, right?
Yeah.
ये डेटा एनालिस्ट लेके आएगा, ये वो डिजाइन का बंदा करेगा, ये इंजीनियरिंग का काम है, ये CSM मतलब कस्टमर सक्सेस का काम है. So those are the people which I personally don't want to work with, because then I have to do more work.
Yeah.
I want somebody in my team who reduces my work, not increases my work, right? And when I say reduces, they need to have certain ways of working so that I will trust that they will do the job in the same way, at least fairly close to how I would do it, so that I can divert my energies elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that's what I look for.
So I think there was this one funny thing which I had kind of spoken, I think 2-3 years back, that the true journey of a product manager is to become from dispensable to indispensable, and from indispensable to dispensable again.
Correct.
That is the true journey of a product manager. But that's so cool. Awesome. So Janta, what I would do is please start raising your hands. I'll start giving opportunities to people who have questions, and I'll bring people in spotlight. I will start. So you can think of, I will just bring up Apramya. It would be great that if you can show your video. Yeah, I'll just put you in the spotlight. Give me a second. There you go.
Hi.
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 Please meet Apramya. Go for it, Apramya.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi.
You spoke about learning from your failures, right, and keeping it to very minimal. Like that's what you tend to do as a good product manager. So my question to you is, what was one of your biggest product failures, and what did you learn from it? And so that it actually shaped your current approach, what you have today, in terms of problem solving, in terms of being a good product operator in general.
That's as much as so I've told you, I'm saying I have so many failures that I don't know which I would size the most. But look, I'll tell you, see, product failures are easy to get over because you try to sort of keep experimenting, failing, and sort of improving. And how you create experiments is you don't necessarily overbuild it. You find a Google form, you find Google Sheets, you connect it, you do something. So those are like failures that you are like bound to do. So I wouldn't even count those as failures. I call them experiments, right? I have failed, like everybody fails, like in life, right? So I spent like what 10 years odd in the US, and before I went there, right? Obviously, the visa processes and all are like so different today, but back then it was strange. It was just like a year or two after 9/11. It was hard, and I went to this, consulate officer, and I had like, I'm not failed to admit it. I had a lot of backlogs in my engineering sort of thing. So he looked at my sort of marks cards and he said, look, how many do you have? Why should I give you the visa? And I don't know what I actually said. I can't recall. But the fact is, look, he didn't judge me on my failures in my sort of, and that was more of a life experience, right? Now, I didn't necessarily answer your question. Let me try to answer that. What really shaped me was when I was doing the startup. It was in payments. We ran it for 5.5 years. And for better or for worse, we ended up sort of like getting acquired by Grab, as Shravan mentioned. But those 5.5 years were very, very hard for all of us. We were a small team. And the founder sort of obviously had, as a team, we had our ups and downs. We couldn't raise funds at that time. It was a hard sort of thing to understand. Um, so I don't consider the startup as a failure, but I had repeated like multiple failures during the course of the time. I stuck through that journey with that team, and we saw an outcome. So it is more about overcoming those days where you said, look, it's a bad day. You'll come out of it. You don't have money. You're not getting your salaries for various reasons, right? Because we just don't have funding. I mean, that's the fact of. So where will it come from, right? So even though I mean I'm as a founder, that it's as much my responsibility, a co-founder, right? So that's my failure. Like people, including myself, are going through this. So the learning there is, look, it'll get better. This too shall pass, right? Um, and that is more of a life experience or a life learning, a Prameya, right? So the this too shall pass is the learning. And now, after those 5.5 years of journey, nothing phases me, right? If I have no money, I don't care, right? I don't work for the money. I like that's what my kids, and it's for them, right? I have my same lifestyle whether I have money or don't have money, right? So the learning for me was this too shall pass. And the resilience and the character building of building that startup is, second to none. I would do it over and over again just for that, thrill of like seeing certain, adoption and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I look back with very fond memories.
Very cool. Very cool.
I hope I answered your question,
Yes,
Aprameya.
yes, you did. You did.
I think operators have this thing which I would call, but and people generally think it's derogatory, but मजदूरी करना सबको पसंद होता है और जहां पे आप खुद से कर रहे होते हो तब ज्यादा मजा आता है. ठीक है. Anyways, ठीक है. I'll bring Neha now. ठीक है. Neha, just bringing you across. Give me a second. I'll just put you in the spotlight. I'll just
Thank
show
you, Pavan.
Yes. Awesome. Neha, go for it. Yes.
Hi, Pavan. First
Yeah.
of all, thank you for giving us such beautiful insights in your, lifetime journey, Avita. It's really wonderful. So my question to you is like, it is spread into two ways, but I'll try to like concise it a bit. So, what is your way when you want to prioritize your features in a product?
Hmm.
And in your experience, what has been the most effective way to gather the user feedback and put that into your product, when you do iterations and all? So, how do you think that you should prioritize? What is your way of thinking? And then you gather the feedback and you put that in, and then release a new, iteration or something like that.
Yeah, so Neha, I'm sure you prioritize better than me. Because I'll tell you, it's see, I think there is no one answer to this. You'll have multiple frameworks, RISE and impact, ROI, revenue, yeah, adoption. There's a bunch of stuff you'll come up with. The next organization you go to, it'll like that framework will not apply. And there will be like existing customers. If it's B2B, B2C, it's different. If it's a sort of fintech versus food delivery, it's different. So there is no one single answer to your sort of question. It's one of the hard skills to do, and you don't get it right all the time, right? Um, I am trying to answer that question in my current role as well. Like, to be very, very honest with you.
Yeah, as per your experience.
Yeah. So you always take the most. So you try to bring science into it, right? Like you try to say, let me come up with a scoring model, uh, you know, but I don't think. I'm sorry, Neha, I am actually not able to answer your question very well, because I honestly don't think there is one size fits all.
Mhm.
And it's a constant struggle, no matter who says what, right? I can tell you for a fact that all companies struggle with this question. So, um, I'm just being honest with you there. But how one would think in terms of prioritizing and having a way to, again, it goes back to your fundamentals. Have some framework. It doesn't matter whether it is right or wrong. It doesn't matter if it is Pavan's or Neha's, right? What matters more is you have a definition, you have a way to sort of come up with a score, and then you have a way like to run your entire list of asks through that framework, and so that way it's normalized, and then whatever comes out of that answer, right, that need not be the final answer. That goes through a round of discussion and goes through refinement based on you know customers, consumers, noise, compliance, regulation, a lot of factors affect. But my suggestion for you is have some framework and then be open to changing the results of that framework. That will define how successful you are able to navigate through your sort of stakeholders as such. But what I can share with you is there is no framework which will give you 100% of the answers all the time. Look, I'm trying to be as honest as possible. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I'll tell you there are two insights from the answer that he gave you, at least what I took away. Okay. The first insight is whatever he told you, that there is no prioritization. Even I'm trying to figure that out. कि कोई तो तरीका हो जिससे मैं भी अपने काम को मैनेज कर सकूं, ये एक बात है. लेकिन I think the second and the deeper insight here is how honest he was. He said, maybe I can't answer the question in the best possible way. That's the deeper point here, right? When you talk to people who look for merit and they don't judge, that's not, and he was honest there. That's one thing that you should definitely learn, and that's one thing that I take away for sure. Awesome. Cool.
Thank you.
Let me call Sri Lakshmi. Sri Lakshmi, I'm just bringing you in the spotlight. Give me a second. Yes. Awesome. Sri Lakshmi, go for it.
Okay. So, Pavan, I have two questions. One is, how do you make decisions in product management? Because I often I have this bias that every decision I make will be wrong when it comes to my PM job. That is one question I have. Second one is, you have been talking about analytical thinking. So, how do you think for someone, how do you think we can improve our analytical thinking on a day-to-day basis? Like, what would you suggest?
No, that both are great questions. Okay, what was your first one? Sorry. How do you
Make decisions.
decision making? Look, I think the larger point is, first of all, I don't think you should second guess yourself so much, right? I'm sure you're extremely, the fact that you're asking very clear questions, you have very clear thoughts. Perhaps there's a little more self-doubt there than there should be. So I think, ideally, you would want to overcome that, right? Because I think when you second guess, the person in front of you will not have the conviction to, take your point of view, right? I think what you could do there is two things. One is you could talk to the person and co-create your decision-making framework, right? Like almost, so the skill here is how do you make people part of your journey, right? And once they become part of that journey, they will sort of even help you if you're going wrong somewhere, right? And together own like that piece of outcome or work that you guys are doing together, right? But try not to second guess yourself and build that confidence. I'm sure, an extremely confident young lady, so do not second guess yourself, right? I think that's point number one. And I think the second point, even in the same question, is that look, it is better to make wrong decisions faster than to not make a decision.
Yeah.
Right? So the worst thing you can do is not make a decision. What you can do is, hey, look, I made this decision. Do you agree with it or disagree with it? And if disagree, how do we refine it? That's a better conversation to have than let's do this next week or let's do this next month. Or because if you keep doing stuff like that, it's better to make wrong decisions, small, quick, wrong decisions, and keep moving on. If they're wrong, you can always revisit them later. Versus keep holding on, making the larger problem and make one, decision which could, turn the fate of any sort of outcome. So that is what you should avoid. Now, did that answer that first question at least?
Yes, yes.
Right. What was the second question? I'm sorry.
How do you develop
Uh,
analytical abilities? Yeah.
Analytical thinking.
Analytical thing. Hey, no rocket science here again. Just think about a step-by-step way to. I mean, I could easily say solve riddles, do math stuff, but that's not the point here, right? What is the point here? And these are all like, how do you visualize? I think the skill here is how do you visualize the best end state, right? And once you visualize that best end state, you need to manifest that, right? You almost need to sort of like make it happen and do progress towards that best end state. Then how do you group them in sort of meaningful, chunky problems and then figure out what is the right sequence to do it, right? I mean, of course, doing riddles and all that, those are like perhaps just brain exercises. But if you practice this enough, right, Sri Lakshmi, I think it's more than enough. I mean, you don't need to do something out of the ordinary. What you do need to do is know that, like, be able to visualize that end state, be able to say, that end state requires certain sort of foundational capabilities, and breaking that foundational capabilities into so one problem I keep asking in my like interview, I do case studies, right? Like I ask people like build a delivery app for me, right? Or any experience for a delivery person, right? And despite being consumers of it and despite being good skilled PMs, it's a hard sort of thing to actually articulate, right? But some guys do it really well. Some girls do it really well, right? It's just being able to identify what those problems are and having a way to sort of work towards an ideal state, which could further improve in the next sort of phase, right? But at least having a meaningful sort of box towards that. Did I answer your question? Or was it too vague for you?
Yes, yes. No, no, no.
Awesome.
I understand. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Pavan.
Awesome. Varun, I'm bringing you in. Yes. Give me a second. It would be lovely if you can show your face, Varun. Thank you very much. I'm just adding you.
Thank you.
Just a second, Varun. I'll just add you to the spotlight. Yes. So Varun is joining us from the US. He works for Google as a GTM lead. Varun.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, Varun.
I hope
Hey,
I
hey,
hope
Pavan.
I answered your designation right as a GTM lead.
I'm actually a product lead,
Yeah.
product
Oh, wow.
commercialization lead.
Yes.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, Pavan, thank you so much for taking out time
Should
and
I
giving
be
us some
asking you questions instead?
maybe one day for sure.
Sure.
So my question is like, and it's kind of related to my personal ambition. Like I work as Shravan gave a slight introduction. I work as a product commercialization lead. So I sit between the markets and the PMs. And in general, in Google, there is a very strong barrier to moving someone that's not on a product ladder to a product ladder. But
Yeah.
based on like your experience, like, do you think that actually translates into a poor hire if you get someone outside of who has not had product experience? Because one thing I realize is that a lot of these skill sets are very transferable.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of consultants moving over. So I'm trying to understand, like, based on your personal experience or like your personal preference, like how open the industry or you are to
very
having
open.
these lateral transfers.
Yeah, no, look, I'll answer your question. I'm very open because I don't think it is about that. Of course, one has to be careful, and one has to be careful regardless of whether the individual is from the product background or not. It doesn't matter. Now, I was seeing a very interesting video the other day. It was about a girl at Airbnb who built their payments platform. She was a customer service associate, and she was in Argentina, and she got hired as a product manager and moved to the Valley, right? And she continues to be their payments platform PM. Just because of the attributes that I described: curiosity, the ability to want to like sort of solve the problem, understand, empathy. But to answer your question, look, people are open. Now, will large organizations be open? I think they may be a little rigid, or to be very honest. Not for anything else, just because they have a lot of demand coming their way, right? So the openness will be with like somebody in a startup phase, right? And so yeah, you will probably find immediate success if you were to sort of venture out there. But yeah, I think the industry is open. I am personally open. I have like had people from psychology and economics sort of like do great product management, even better than people with engineering background, right? Because they just bring a different perspective. So there is openness, but the suggestion there is perhaps instead of a large org, it's perhaps easier to do that shift in a smaller company.
I'll add one more anecdote here, Varun, just so you have heard. So there was also one friend of mine, and he was a staff product manager at Reddit. So his background, how he started, was from a commerce background, right? And do you know how he essentially broke into his first product experience? He was playing with the early versions of Duolingo, and just so he loved learning languages, he reached out to somewhere there, and he said, "I have so much feedback on how do you improve your app." And he essentially ended up being a senior PM in Duolingo and then a staff PM at Reddit. Right. At some point, मैं उसको भी यहाँ पे लाऊंगा, but he's a very nice friend. But yeah, awesome, Varun. God bless you. ठीक है.
Yeah, good luck,
Thank you, Pavan.
Varun. And happy to
Thank you
connect
so
you
much.
if you are interested to somebody. So let me know.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you for the offer.
Awesome. Bhanubhai, I will bring you in the spotlight. So Bhanubhai has around 18 years of experience.
Fantastic.
He is in the ops space, and I think he's one of the seasoned folks in the cohort. Bhanubhai, please, over to you. Yes.
Thank you, Shivan, for the introduction, and thank you for making this arrangement to connect with Pavan. Okay, hey Pavan, thanks for your time and taking out from your busy schedule and to enlighten us into the product management space. Okay, actually, I have a couple of questions. It's almost a basic questions actually. So one thing I just wanted to know, so what are the factors you would consider before taking any decision, and how much risk it should involve? And is a product manager should ready to take 100% of risk before taking any decision? And that is the first question. Another question is like, everyone is not good at everything. So is a product manager should have weaknesses also? It's good enough, or how exactly is that?
Yeah,
I'll paraphrase that. But Bhanubhai is saying, is it okay to have certain weaknesses as a product manager, or you have to be like, वही गॉड लेवल आदमी बनना पड़ेगा, आपको सब स्किल में अच्छा होना पड़ेगा, वैसा वाला सिनेरियो होता है क्या? हाँ.
No, let me answer the second question first, and maybe I'll ask you to repeat the first.
Sure.
No, look, it's totally okay to have weaknesses. But the point here is you should have the humility and the awareness to acknowledge that weakness and say, look, I will work towards this weakness. So you don't have to be a Superman. You have to be, almost the people who do very well are the guys who actually, what can I say? I'm not getting the right word here, but are open about their weaknesses.
Okay.
And they're almost human, right? I mean, we're all human. I
Right.
have weaknesses as an individual. You ask my family, they'll tell me. They'll tell you, right? And I have weaknesses as a professional. I have weaknesses as a PM as well, right? Now, I acknowledge that. I say, look, I'm not good at this. Let me bring somebody to complement my skill here and sort of like partner there, right? So absolutely, and perhaps also in due course of time, close that gap and perhaps work on a different weakness subsequent. So it's totally okay. You're not expected to be a superhuman. You're expected to sort of be humble enough to acknowledge, be aware of it, and work towards solving it to the best extent possible. Right?
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
And the first question I wasn't able to understand between risk and investment. Could you repeat that and perhaps elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. So what are the factors you consider before taking any decision? Okay. So it will involve a lot of risk, and how much risk one PM should consider before taking a decision.
Yeah, look, depends on the stage and the portfolio that the PM is driving, and how large of an impact it would create for the business to shut down, right? For a lack
Right,
of a
right.
better word.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody is looking at, like, regulatory, like wallet related stuff at Paytm, I'm sure like that risk is super critical and needs to be managed, needs to be escalated, and needs to be debated before decisions are made, right? But if somebody is looking at small onboarding flows, एक flow गलत हो गया, yeah, and you take at an execution level, you should constantly figure out the small risks and make decisions to keep moving forward. And at a strategic level, you constantly evaluate larger risks, and more senior sort of seasoned leaders take decisions there. So when somebody who is perhaps growing up in their career, they identify certain risks, they are better off in highlighting them versus making decisions there, because it impacts a large group of people.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
I will now bring
Thank
Ashu.
you. Thanks,
Ashu.
Pawan.
So, Pavan, Ashu recently, he was a member of the previous cohort and he's a mentor in the current cohort. He recently transitioned as a senior PM in a Series C funded company.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
So if you at any given point want to hijack some people, Ashu is the right person. Ashu, go for it. Yes.
Thank you, Shavan Bhaiya. Thanks a lot for these words. And Pavan, thank you for coming by and addressing us. We all are grateful to you for the same. So
thank
my question is that in the starting you mentioned that as we go up the ladder in PM, right, the problem becomes much more complex. So essentially, how do we do the discovery of a problem as we go up the ladder? This is my question from you.
No, I wouldn't say problem becomes more. I mean, of course, the reason it becomes more complex is you have a larger sort of view of what needs to be done, right? Versus, let's say, you are early in your career and you're focusing on onboarding, right? Just as an example, and you're very like focused on onboarding. Then you like, let's say, what you are in which domain right now?
I'm in logistics only.
Logistics, right?
So the funny part. Very cool, very cool.
Yeah,
Both
right.
of them
Let's
understood.
talk. No, so yeah, so basically I mean, okay, there are too many common, I don't know which product to talk to you about, but let's say there is about supply, there's about demand, there's about fulfillment, there's about onboarding supply, there's onboarding fulfillment, then there is about like increasing the demand, increasing the supply funnel. It's there's so many things to look at, and when you sort of just have a wider scope, it becomes more complex because you have to balance a lot of priorities, right? But sorry, what was the question in that? I was just clarifying what is complex.
How do you do discovery for more ambiguous problems as they become like deeper and deeper and more complex in nature?
It's a good question, yeah. I don't know how to articulate this. Let me think. How do you do it? Let me ask you that. I don't. Let me see if I can sort of resonate and see if I can also extract something out of that.
Okay, so Pawan, I had this discussion with one of the co-founders of the previous organization. So
Yeah.
he told me that how do I do that is first I see the event that is happening, right, and then I go backtrack it. What was the other event that led to this, and start doing it, digging it deeper vertically. So lateral plus vertical. These are two approaches that I take while discovering a problem.
Yeah. Uh, Similar, but a little different. So I'll tell you what I mean by that is, look, as you have a wider view, and that's what I was trying to sort of articulate, you should be well versed with all the individual views, right? And so you have people in that org for focusing on those like deeper problems.
Correct.
You have people in the org who are abstracting and solving the platformization problem, and you have a view of the entire sort of box that works, right? So what the discovery of this is essentially knowing the fact that what is the final outcome and where it is sort of breaking. So you almost have to draw that tree, right? and see, look, did this go properly? Did this happen properly? Did this metric go down? That metric don't go down, and then sort of say, look, even though the outcome is this, the reason of that sort of complexity or things breaking lies. I'll give you a good example. You do logistics, right? Is it
Right.
truck logistics or is it?
So we have different third 3PLs, and then we have our own fleet also.
You do three GPS onboarding?
No, as of now, it is not happening.
Okay, so basically, okay, I don't want to bore you guys with an example. What could happen is
Okay.
the outcome could reflect in the form of, better visibility of tracking, but the problem could be about the way we onboard it.
Correct.
I'll
Correct.
give you an example. Payments may be relatable. How you onboard a merchant reflects in how you like send money to that merchant,
Yeah.
and how you settle, how many reports he gets, right? If you onboard McDonald's 20 times, he'll get 20 reports and 20 sort of settlements, and he will come and like, uh, you know, uh, I don't know, blast you for like doing something like that. But you need to sort of figure out how you onboard him well, because it sort of flows through, and his final outcome is he getting that money, right? So the problem manifestation and like how it showcases could be very different from the actual source of it. So you need to understand as you grow, uh, through this ladder, as we call that, right? Is how your wide portfolio sort of, what are the things that move your wider portfolio, what are the things that move your deeper portfolio, and where these intersection points are, so that you can zone in on these root problems faster. It's not like you can't do it, you just zone in faster.
Correct. Correct, Pavan. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for
Awesome.
answering the
Awesome.
question.
So, Janta, in the interest of time, we are already 6 minutes above, right? I would definitely recommend other people to ask questions, probably send it across, and I will send it to Pavan. But for everyone, the ritual that we have, so we would definitely Pavan एक photograph लेनी पड़ेगी सबके साथ. और
Sure.
मैंने आपको एक प्रॉमिस किया है मेरे साइड से कि आपके नंबर ऑफ फॉलोअर्स हम डबल कर देंगे. ये
Oh
हम
my God.
मैं
I don't post stuff, and I definitely don't
but
post
you'll get
stuff
tagged
like
a lot. So your LinkedIn app is going to burst with notifications. That's anyway going to happen. So please, जनता अपने चेहरे तो दिखाओ यार. यार मुझसे ज्यादा अच्छे तो तुम दिखते हो. तो यार please, I want everyone to show their faces. Awesome. At the count of 3, we'll do cheese. ठीक है? 1,
Right.
2, 3. Cheese.
Jeez.
Awesome. Again. So let me just bring back the speaker view. Yes. So Pavan, before we kind of wind up this session, I have one question to ask. Right?
Please.
And that one question is, how do you be so calm? I'm like the exact antithesis of you as a person in terms of the how do you essentially keep yourself so composed, right?
I'm not at all composed.
At least the vibe, that's the vibe. People will agree. You can put yes, yes, yes if people do agree. Yes.
No, that's because you're seeing perhaps like, I don't know, the lighter side of me right now. I'm fun out of work. I'm decent fun, right? Like I enjoy the occasional sort of drink. I enjoy a laugh with my friends. So yeah, but I'm definitely not a calm personality. But yeah, you could ask anybody from my team or past, present, and my friend circle, they would agree with me.
Awesome. Awesome. Once again, Pavan, super grateful. I think everybody had fun. Janta, as a gratitude token to Pavan, the two things that I want from you is feedback just after the session, which I want to share it with him. It would be lovely for him. As the second thing is,
Yeah.
bas, bye. Tag करना शुरू करो. आग लगा दो. ठीक है? चलो.
No,
Thank you.
look, thank you so much for having me. And, I hope I answered the questions and did justice, to all, all of your time, because it's equally important. And if I didn't, I would love it if you could actually give me that feedback. So please do that. And please be open about it. It's totally fine. I would much rather know that and sort of address it the next time around, if such a Shravan would still invite me again. But yeah, regardless, I would love to know that. So thank you for your time, and would love to hear even, feedback about where I could improve, in my own sort of whatever I shared.
I think the amount of love that you're getting gives you the initial, that's you the seeds of insight, right? That's the observations are the seeds of insight. We yesterday had a session that what is insight, and we said not all observations are insights, but insights stem from observations, right? Awesome. Thank you very much, Pavan. I'll
All
speak.
right. Thank you. Bye bye all.